Council, just give us one moment. We're getting organized here. Thank you. Okay, everyone hear me? Thumbs up. I see lots of nod. Attention all passengers. Welcome to Air Harding. There we go. Okay, I'd like to officially call this meeting to order at 2:02 p.m. and it is our second council meeting for the year 2022. 1, 2, Councillor Edwards, I know his camera's on. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 10. Clerk Hammond is not a councillor, so we have 10 of us. I do know that as the day progresses, we may lose 1 or 2 councillors. Thank you for that notification. I do also today want to acknowledge that we are on lands traditionally occupied by Indigenous peoples. It's Indigenous peoples that have cared for this territory for the benefit of future generations. Their stewardship throughout the ages is certainly recognized. Today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Township Muskoka Lakes website and YouTube channel. Participating in open public meeting today, you're consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded and posted online. We have not had any public comments or email channel. We do have a supplementary agenda, and that is to add item 11A, council in closed session, adding 2 additional matters of litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. At this particular point, I'll ask if we have any declarations of pecuniary interests from council. See lots of shaking of heads, no nodding of heads, so that's great. Thank you. I'm going to continue to move on. Councillor Bridgman, comment?
Thank you, Mayor Harding. Just quickly, I am going to formally withdraw the motion regarding to broadband that is on the agenda today.
Thank you for that. And that is item number 7B. Consider 7B withdrawn. Thank you. Appreciate that. And I just want to make a quick comment. We had a couple of notice of motions this morning coming directly to committee and then trying to come directly to council. As a matter of practice, probably the best way to get things, especially on a council agenda or on a committee agenda, is to bring it up under new business in the committee level, have some discussion about it, and then staff can chime in accordingly and then bring it with a more fulsome report. And hopefully we don't have these false starts and stops going forward. So just probably a good standard practice of operation, because we do have a number of notice of motion, and sometimes they are having some issues as we move forward. With that, I'm going to continue to move on. We've got some minutes to approve, and I have a resolution moved by Councillor Zabit, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Be it resolved that the Mayor and Council adopt and enact the following minutes and recommendations contained in the February 16th, 2022 consent agenda, and direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. And that is number 1, the January 11th special GNF committee meeting minutes, January 12th general finance committee meeting minutes, action items 1 to 4, January 12th council minutes, and January 13th are planning committee minutes and action items 1 through 4. Any comments on enacting those minutes? Seeing none. All those in favor? Madam Clerk, that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. 1 out of a large stack done for the day, but we're moving there. Thank you. We are going to move on here. Let me see what our next item is. 7A, moved by Councillor Jagowitz regarding the regional governance review. I have a report on that, but Councillor Jeglos, do you want to introduce this motion? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think maybe we should move this forward to the next meeting also, because the motion that I have in front of me just endorses the Township of North Dumfries resolution, which is not specific to our municipality. So I'll give you a choice. You can either modify this motion to be specific for us, or I would suggest that maybe I would consult with the clerk and bring this forward at the next meeting. All we're doing here in this motion is endorsing a motion regarding regional government for another municipality. It's not specific to ours, unless I've misinterpreted it. When I brought it forward last meeting, I wanted us to make it specific to ours.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to the seconder, Chair Bridgman. Do you want to withdraw this motion at this particular time? Okay, thank you, Councillor Jeglos and Councillor Bridgman. My suggestion would be at this point then that you could correspond potentially with the CAO in this particular case over the next 30 days and would bring this back to council in March for a endorsement of the North Dumfries resolution and or a amendment to include our own specific.
And if I might just add, yes, I will do that. And thank you. Also, when we exited the general finance meeting, there were a couple of motions there that I wanted to address at this also. And I think I'll do that the same way. I'll bring it to the CAO and bring them forward to the next meeting. Thank you.
Okay, so committee, all in favor of deferral of this motion at this particular time? It's been withdrawn, so it's not on the floor anyway, but thank you, Madam Clerk. You're comfortable? There we go. Where are we going here? Connected broadband has been removed. Thank you. It looks like our funding agency agreement grant 8A or 8E, or we want to do a couple reports ahead of that. I've just got a resolution. Maybe I'm out of order. Okay, hold on that. I'm gonna go to item 8E. And that is a report from the Communications and Economic Development Specialist, Mr. Moore. Are you with us today? And then we have a external funding resolution in front of us. You want to give us a highlight? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Good afternoon, Council. Today's report just provides a summary of various funding grants we were successful in receiving at the Township for various projects that have been identified in plans and strategies. The recommendation today is just authorizing the Mayor and Clerk to sign those funding agreements for each of the applications. And additionally, you will note in the report, as part of continuous improvement, staff bringing back a draft policy for consideration to delegate this authority if the projects themselves have already been approved and budgeted for. With that, I'm available for any questions.
Thank you for that. I have a resolution I'm going to read, and that is moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that the Mayor and Clerk be authorized to execute all external funding agency grant documentation as noted in report CED 2002-8. Just to correct, is that the correct report, or is it 2022-8?
It's 2022-8.
It is 2022. I will make that correction here. Thank you very much. So in report CED 2022-8. Any further comments? All those in favor? Madam Clerk, I believe we are once again carried. Thank you. I'm going to move on. Looks like our fire station renovations. And who's going to handle this? Mr. Becking, do you want to introduce this briefly? Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Members of Council, tenders were called for the renovation to the fire hall in the Port Carling. You'll recall that this is the first step in the process of implementing the space optimization study for the township offices. Staff are recommending that the tender be awarded to the low bidder in the amount of $300,900. Morgan Construction. You will note in the financial section that there's a considerable variance from the amount allocated in the budget You should know that the estimate that was included in the budget was not prepared with the value of the input from the architect. It was a guess based on the provision of 2 office spaces. The work has on the advice of the architect become more expensive than was originally intended, and hence the reason for the variance between the initial estimate or preliminary estimate and the actual construction cost. With that, Your Worship, I'll answer questions.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions on the particular resolution? Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, and through you. Did you say expansive or expensive, Director Becking? My sense is
Director.
Your Worship, the 2 scopes of work are not comparable. We provided a budget estimate at the time of preparation of the budget for simply 2 office spaces. There is a lot more work involved, and particularly some structural work relative to supporting the new training area, and that makes up the bulk of the difference.
if I might.
Thank you. A supplemental.
Thank you, through you. This is still a good opportunity for us. I mean, if we had wind the clock back, we were looking at this, I don't know, a year ago, 8 months ago, would we still be doing this based on 100 versus 300? I mean, this is still a good decision. Very general question.
Director Becking, if you want to comment.
I still would submit to council, Your Worship, that this represents good value for money. The alternative is to construct new facilities, and I can assure you that that would be many times the cost of the proposed tender.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jagowitz.
Thank you, Chair. Following on that same theme, as most of council would be aware, I did question this with the director, and he did submit at least the last part of my correspondence to him, to you. I think we should revisit this. That's my take. I've lost track of how strategic this piece of the office deal is. It seems to me that we hired consultants. They came in with a very elaborate plan to redo all the offices, and I think this council approved this step as a way of abating that. But so I just have trouble with it, and I'm not a professional in space management. I don't know anything about contracts. But one thing I will just say, because it's going to come up at another subject, that this was a tender, and you'll notice that all the bids and the details of it were made public. And that's because we have a procurement bylaw, and there's 4 methods of procuring things. This was a tender, therefore everything's public. If it was an RFP, it would have been confidential. So, but it is public, and the sketch that the director provided to you was one of 4 or 5, which are right on the bidding site. They were public documents. But what I see here is we're creating 2 office spaces for $300,000, and I just have a lot of trouble with it. So, but I'm just one of many. So if anybody else feels the same way, please chime in. If not, I guess it'll go forward. Thank you, sir.
Councillor Jagowitz, we did briefly lose some connection here at the office, and I know some of our clerk and senior staff are still just logging back in, as you can see right now. Can everybody hear me okay right now? Some yes, some no. Councillor, okay, I see some thumbs up. I've transferred over myself. I'm going to see if Director Becking or even Chief Morrell maybe want to give us some explanation about what exactly is included in this renovation and why is the need for this renovation at this particular time. Chief, over to you.
Through you, Mayor Harding, to council. I think if council recalls, there was a report that was brought forward by the Director of Public Works, and it was a space optimization plan. And in it was contained the option of moving the fire department wholly out of the township offices. In order to facilitate that, the fire department moving over to the Port Carling Fire Hall, we could easily occupy one of the spaces is the space I'm in right now, which is removing this space from the use with the general membership, which they seem to have accepted, which is an exercise room. The second space that we've occupied right now with fold out tables is an area that was their training room. So that is one part of the area, or one part of the, I think the facility bid that went out. To recover that, we are actually looking at constructing that spot over top of the current storage area. So I'll let Director Becking speak a little bit more elaborately to that. And I know another part of the build involved moving some utilities and services within the building in order to accommodate that build.
Dr. Becking, do you want to add?
Thank you, Your Worship. Chief Morrell is correct. You'll recall that we presented you with a space optimization study with respect to the Township Hall. The plan that you approved is contingent upon moving the fire administration operations to the Port Carling community, or Port Carling Fire Hall, and to that end, this work is necessary for that implementation.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jagowitz, does that answer your questions this time? Maybe a little background and clarity.
Actually, it doesn't, but there's other speakers, so maybe you'll allow me to speak after they've had their say. Thank you.
Oh, we'll see. Thank you. Councillor Roberts, I'll go to you first.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. And this is a love it or list it scenario, that they play out all the time on reality TV. Sometimes when you peel the onion, you get into things that you need to do architecturally. What I'd like to ask is for CA Hammond to come on, if he would, or one of his senior team, to remind us of the significance of all the dominoes that we're trying to achieve with the optimization, because this appears to be the first step. And if we stop the first step, then we stop the whole optimization, which is needed, because you will recall during budget time, we asked for more belly buttons to be placed in the township office. Go ahead. So that's right, my ask.
Okay, I'll go to CAO Hammond if you want to comment briefly. Thank you.
Thanks, Your Worship. And I think Councillor Roberts is right, just following on the comments of Chief Morrell and Director Becking. Staff did, this has been an ongoing exercise for quite some time. We've discussed space optimization at length. There was a study that was submitted. The first step, if you will, is to create space in the township office by moving the fire department's administrative operations to the Port Carling Fire Station. So if we were not to do that, as Councillor Roberts is alluding, that then complicates the lack of space that we have at the township office now. So as Director Becking has pointed out, this is the first step, and when we looked at the various options, you'll recall that there was quite extensive modifications that were being proposed to the township office initially by the space optimization consultant, and the senior team took a look at that and took a bit more of a pragmatic approach. I appreciate that there's what can be seen as a considerable expense here with respect to the changes at the fire hall, but that was put in context of, as Director Becking has pointed out, the construction of a new building, and this was a way of forestalling that major expense for 5 to 10 years, or 10 years and a bit beyond. I'll stop there, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you very much, Mayor Harding. Just to Director Becking, approximately how many square feet are we and not renovating there? What's the cost per square foot? Because I looked at the area and it seems quite large and I think we should go ahead with it for the simple fact that I mentioned there today we're spending over $1 million for the housing in at the district. I think it's for 3 to 5 apartments. So, you know, really construction costs have gone up. If we delay this, it'll go up again. And that we put it out for tenders. We had three tenders, and that. So I would and that definitely go ahead with it. But I'd like to know from now on what's the cost per square foot for all these jobs. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Becking. Do you have a square footage?
The space that is being recreated, if you will, above the storage area is roughly 20 by, I'm going to say 22 by 22. It's about 450 square feet or thereabouts. We're looking at a capital cost of $300,000. Now, in addition to that, we are also putting in partition walls to create the 2 offices. And we are also making modifications both to the servery area as well as creating or converting one of the existing rooms in the fire hall to become the office for the chief. It's not an exact science, if you will, to take the total area and divide it into the cost of the project, because I think it misrepresents the unit cost of the work. But it's we're in the $500 to $600 per square foot, which is not out of the norm for building construction in my experience.
Okay, thank you. That's all I wanted to know, because I think it's within the realm, and and that construction as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I go to Councillor Jagowitz, Director Becking or Chief Morrell, maybe you can answer. Number one, if we didn't do this, what's the alternative? What do we do with these bodies and people? And the other question, I'm quite sure, just have we evaluated all alternatives to try and find a less expensive option? This was in our idea to move and our plan months ago to move our fire department and house them fully at the fire station. So what, again, is an alternative, or what could be done if we had to, say, cut $100,000?
Frankly, there isn't an alternative, Your Worship. We have to move the fire department, pure and simple. There is no other group that could readily be moved out of this building in order to make room for the additional people who are coming in, and to, frankly, provide space for those that are currently here. We have a number of areas where the amount of space provided for individuals is simply not acceptable, not adequate. So we're trying to accommodate the additional bodies that are coming in, as well as create a office space that works for the staff that are presently here.
Thank you. Answer my question. I'll go to your second question, Councillor Jagowitz, and then Councillor Zavitz.
Yes, yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, I understand this is one piece of the puzzle. It's the first piece. And I understand we approved it or suggested it go forward. But since the first piece is coming in at 3 times or 2 or 3 times the original cost, I'd like to actually revisit the whole concept and just have understand, if this is the first piece, what are the other pieces, and should those costs not be updated too, so we understand that this is the right direction. Now, I understand that many may not agree with me, and that's fine too. But that would be my request, that we have an opportunity to revisit the total project and where we're going with this. Failing that, I'll likely just be voting against that, as the mayor suggested. If you disagree with something, vote against it, but council moves forward. So thank you for allowing me to express my views.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to circle back to that concept in a moment. Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, and through you. So I guess the cost per person, I mean, how many people are we actually accommodating at the new facility? Are we moving 6 people over, 9, 2? I know this is a fulsome effort to completely realign the fire department in that facility. Are we just thinking there's 2 people? I mean, I'd like to know what that number is, just for clarity.
Councillor Zavitz, I believe Chief Morrell just advised there were 4 people who would be moving over there.
Correct.
Okay. And is it relative to the space savings in the township office, where we're going to be able to put in 6 new people with realignments and things? Because I think we almost need to look at this in aggregate. To Councillor Jagowitz's piece, maybe we don't need to review it if in fact, there's a more fulsome move afoot here. Thank you.
Okay, so Council, we've heard Councillor Jagowicz would potentially like to defer this to go back and revisit our entire space optimization plan to understand. Director Becking, I'm going to just ask one question of you, and then I'm going to get a better read on Council. From a redesign space optimization, when we were presented with some hybrid versions, some tear down and rebuild versions. Basically, can you advise the direction right now, costs aside, whether it came in $1 or $5? The alternatives, I'm assuming if they were going to come in at $5, would have come in at $10, and maybe help us just that way to help move us forward in one direction or another. What's your advice? I know you have a recommendation.
Well, my advice to you, Your Worship, is to stay the course. The alternative is to construct a new town hall of sufficient size, or add on to the existing town hall to sufficient size that would permit you to accommodate all of the staff that have been retained, as well as the fire department and so forth. You'll recall in the space optimization study that adding on to the existing building to the east was going to cost something in the order of $750,000 or thereabouts, plus some additional expense associated with rejigging the interior space within the building. That will put us well over $1 million. The alternative is to spend the money to move the fire department over to the fire hall and to do some rejigging within the existing building. That's going to be somewhere between $500,000 and $600,000. It will, at the end of the day, be the least costly alternative, and it will buy you 5 to 10 years.
Stop you there. That's great. Thank you very much, Director Becking. Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. Mostly I'm going through the same type of exercise right now in our new seniors facility in Bala. And it's really, if you don't grab hold of what you've got, you're going to lose that person, that group that is willing to take on the work and start again, and it will put you that further behind. But I will say that I've had concern about this project for some time. Again, I was hoping someday that we would all be able to get together and have a vision of what we would like to see in our township. I don't think we've really had that opportunity to do that this term of council. And maybe it is a brand new facility. They're, looking at everything, but we just haven't gotten there. And that's the disappointing part for me, because then we get these, to me, they're small items, but they're expensive small items. And we need to address, but I don't feel like it's in part of our visioning, quite honestly. I just don't think we ever got there. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And Councillor Nishikawa, just provide notice that you by accident turned off your camera, I believe. Councillor Kelly, I'll go to you.
Thank you, and through you, two things that I'm going to agree with Councillor Jagowitz. The ink isn't dry on this year's budget, and this surprise rolls along, which was foundational in part. The foundation for this was in the budget. It makes me a little anxious about what other surprises are in the budget that we've approved, and it also makes me want to go back and question our initial decision to move in this direction, given that price was part of the decision-making process. And secondly, and I'm going to agree with Councillor Nishikawa, this seems like very much like a patchwork temporary short-term solution. And I think a vision for what our assets are going to look like down the road is important. And especially after we hear today from the Parks and Recreation Master Plan consultant that arenas and community centers, I mean, the whole thing, we've got a campus on Bailey Street, and I have no idea if we've thought about how that morphs and what it evolves into. I don't think it should move in 4 different directions. I think it should be community center, township office, arena, whatever else, as a kind of a statement, kind of a vision. Same in Bala, same elsewhere. So this is a huge jump. And I understand construction costs have gone up, and I understand that we made initial budget estimates based on perhaps a less than full understanding of the work that would be involved. But for me, it's a perfect opportunity to go back and revisit the original decision and see if we can't come up with something better.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate that comment. And I have heard some questions. Councillor Zavitz, I've heard twice commented on this topic right now. What I have heard is a potential for a send staff back, rethink what this council has already chimed in on. I would remind council that this whole measure was that of a temporary measure to buy us 5 or 10 years to get our new Parks and Recreational Master Plan, to put in place some ideas and motions to how do we have a Port Carling campus? Do we have a Bala campus? Do we have a Manette campus? Potentially to group everything together, to your comment. I think we will never make that decision in the next 2 weeks, 2 months, or 5 months. And before us today is a opportunity to potentially move forward. Councilor Mazan, I see your hand up and you haven't spoken yet. Do you have a specific question? Because I do want to just get a nodding of heads to see whether or not council is in favor of deferring this at this point. Otherwise, I'm going to read the motion. Councilor Mazan, a question?
Yeah, I guess the question would be, is there a downside to having these 4 spots? I haven't heard down the road that we plan to revisit this Port Carling Fire Station. So having 4 offices in there, to me, in the long term, I know this is going to bridge a gap for 5 years as far as total staff, but it would seem like that kind of space, to me, seems like it would be usable space for much longer in a fire hall, unless there's an intentional plan coming out of our fire master plan that that whole fire hall is getting rehauled, in which case we're in a completely different scenario. So I would support this right now and understand that staff have done the work, and as council, we've made this choice before. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Becking, I guess the question on the table is this wasted money? Should we decide to make a virtual change? I guess the only option that would be wasted money is if we scrapped our fire station in Port Carling altogether. Director?
As I said earlier, Your Worship, my advice to you is to proceed with the project. I think it's a necessary first step, regardless of what happens 2, 3, 5, 10 years down the pipe. That having been said, I do want to make you aware that if you turn it down today, that will result in us having to cancel the tender, and we will be left to have to retender at some future date, just so that you're aware of the consequences of the decision.
Okay, thank you for that. Council, I think just, we're not really supposed to do a straw poll as a direction here. So I think if you do want to send staff back to reevaluate this, I would suggest that you turn down this resolution at this particular time. I think it's either we move forward with this or we send everybody back, and it's going to be the same results if you decide to choose against this resolution. So I have a resolution moved by Councillor Hayes, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that contract T 2021-36 for Port Carling Fire Station renovations be awarded to WS Morgan Construction for the bid price of $300,900, excluding HST, and that the Director of Public Works be authorized to execute the necessary documents to proceed with the project. Any final comments? All those in favor of this resolution? I believe we have 6 and 7 in favor. Just, okay, and we'll say those opposed. Thank you. Those opposed to the resolution. It is carried 7-3. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And I also do appreciate, by the way, those who were in opposition to this. Obviously, we have a number of facilities and asset management decisions to make going forward, and baby steps, I think, to get there. We have a vehicle retender, and I believe Chief Morrell, is this yours? No, Director Becking, excuse me.
Just to keep council in the loop, Your Worship, we tendered for a number of vehicles last year. The supplier, who was the successful bidder, has had difficulty delivering the vehicle. In January, he advised us that they would no longer be able to honor their bid. And unless we were prepared to upgrade the vehicle, which we do not believe represents good value for money. On the basis of that, we've deleted the tender and closed it. We will tender for an additional vehicle in 2022 to make up for the shortfall in 2021.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go right to this resolution moved by Councillor Evers, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that staff report PW 2022-009, retendering a vehicle tender T 2021-07 be received for information purposes only. Any comments? Director, thank you for taking care of the taxpayers and not spending money that we don't need to spend to get that new shiny truck. Much appreciated. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Chief Morrell, I think you've got a similar concept on the table. Chief?
Yes, through you, Your Worship. I could say ditto to the same, the exact same report is before council. It provides an update on a fire vehicle that was supplied and presented to council. The award of tender happened last year. It was a light duty vehicle, a pickup truck. The vendor was unable to meet the requirements of the contract, nor were they able to provide any reasonable guarantees they'd be able to do it in time. And as a note of fairness that I know Mr. Becking didn't mention, when we do these tenders and we put them out, we have local vendors that put in for these tenders. And as a note of fairness, if somebody else cannot meet the requirements in the tender, it is best to actually cancel the order and then re-tender in order to assure that we're going to get tenders from other people moving forward. So we're recommending that we cancel the tender as per our policy because it doesn't meet the specs. And we propose to add this pickup truck to this year's allotment of capital projects that will come before council for approval.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Nishikawa, want to comment?
Thank you. I'm taking this opportunity to ask again to look over our purchasing of our vehicles for the fire department. We talked about this for years and years and years, and to try to stretch it out, because with now the added expense for the fire hall, I think we need to find other ways to try to mitigate some of the costs that are going towards that particular department. And again, I you know, it's a bigger talk, it for sure, but I want to put it out there that in fact, I do believe that we should start moving beyond the, you know, we use this for 10 years or whatever the written requirement is provincially. Let's see what we can do to stretch out. I don't need an answer to this, Chief. I'm just asking to keep that in the back of your mind, please. Thank you.
Really noted. Councillor Jagowitz.
Thank you, Chair. I too just wanted to make a comment. Somebody, I'm not sure who, said that our directors are saving us money by deferring the purchase. I don't see that as saving us money. That's just putting it off. And I too echo what has been said, we have a fire plan master study in place. And that that may result in a reduction in the number of vehicles we need. So maybe the fact that we can't find these vehicles or are not available, maybe that's trying to tell us something. But I understand as what has happened on the other motions, we'll proceed as normal. So thank you for allowing me to make that comment.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to read the resolution moved by Councillor Bridgman, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved that staff report ES 2022-004 reissuance of 2021. It's not a renaissance. Reissuance of 2021 fire light duty vehicle tender be received for information purposes only. It's been a long day apparently already. Any further comments? All those in favor? We are good. We're just for the clerk, if everybody can hold your hand up again, the clerk is going to use my screen. I'm on a different Wi-Fi.
Okay,
So there we go. That is carried. Thank you. Maybe I need a mirror behind my back that you can see my screen. We're trying to tell you something. So just got to wait one moment for everyone to get returned back in. Okay, we're letting people come back in. I think Chief Morale, you're back on.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go. I think we're working just fine. Our IT. Thank you, Your Worship. This report that's in front of council right now is titled Firefighter Certification, a Regulatory Registry Posting. So this report is the intention of putting this before council right now. It is rare that anybody is doing this in the province of Ontario right now. Not a lot of fire departments are in a position to put this in front of their councils because it's an overview of a proposed firefighter certification model that would introduce mandatory minimum certification requirements for firefighter training across Ontario. We thought it best to put this in front of council now because there is a comment period that is out right now about the new proposed regulation. A part of this proposed regulation, it was released on January 28th through the Ministry of Solicitor General, and it has a 28-day comment period. And we want to highlight for council that it's out right now for comment. What is part of this regulation is this will be about a minimum standard of firefighter certification for all firefighters in the province of Ontario. The proposed approach is based upon key competencies and job performance requirements in the NFPA standards. Now, again, this is out for consultation, so this is not the regulation that is in the attachments, but we want to highlight for council a few things. This new proposed approach will require municipalities to meet a certification standard that aligns with their level of fire protection service that is identified in their fire department establishing and regulating bylaw. This is important. We will also include minimum training certification requirements for identified fire protection services based on job performance requirements. And these job performance requirements are pulled right from the NFPA standards. It will also require certification to full NFPA standards for certain fire departments that perform certain services. And I'll explain that further. I'm sure somebody will ask about the services that we provide today. It'll also prevent the need for recertification of firefighters. So this is a one and done approach. However, I can talk to the fact that that doesn't seem to align very well with the standard. It will also provide a legacy opportunity, which is very similar to the grandfathering program that we have applied for in the past. To ensure an appropriate work-life balance for our instructor, qualified staff, and external instructors, we have done an evaluation of whether or not this regulation can be achieved in-house. What we've landed on is there will be increased costs, and this is why we have a recommendation in the front of this report that recommends that council provide a resolution that allows the mayor to make comment today. Later on today, there's a proposed meeting for the heads of council, and also that we can provide a letter that provides that comment to the proposed regulation in the commentary period. Staff have investigated the resources required to complete an internal certification program using the OFM materials. However, at this point in time, new data is coming out every day about how this regulation will work. So it's not fully baked. So that's a really key point. So that, like I said, a lot of information about the current proposal is still forthcoming. And we are now 16 days into the comment period. The Association of Municipalities of Ontario and the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs are reviewing this matter, and they will provide comment on Monday. There is a proposed meeting, as I said before, between the province and the heads of council today, and another one slated for Friday, where we can provide comment. So I've made a recommendation at the front of this report, asking council to evaluate the recommendation as it reads, and then propose it if possible. I stand for questions.
Thank you very much, Chief. And as Chief mentioned, there is a meeting later on today. Hopefully we are out of council before said meeting where the CIO and myself are supposed to be in attendance. Any further comments or any comments on this particular resolution? Obviously, the Chief has provided his comments, needs our help and our support. Okay, I'm not seeing any. Madam Clerk, if you're okay, the resolution would be the same as is included in our agenda package. So I do have a resolution moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Jagowitz. And it whereas yada, 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 with a bunch of whereases, and therefore be it resolved with a couple other therefore be it resolves. And again, as stated in our agenda package. Councillor, you okay that I don't read the entire resolution? We're all good on that? Any further, I have consensus. Any further comments or questions on that? All those in favor? And that, Madam Chair, without my screen, I believe it's carried unanimously. Madam Clerk. Councilor Nishikawa, are you in favor of that? We didn't see your hand. I believe you are. No. You are not in favor of this. Okay, all those opposed, just for the record. There we go. Thank you. Okay. Fire Chief. Appointment of auditors. Where's Director Donaldson? There we go. Director.
Thank you, Your Worship. Report before you. The last time RFP for audit services went out was 2013. It was extended in 2018. So at Council's approval of a resolution in November, I believe, we did go out and issue that RFP and recommended that BDO Canada be appointed our auditor for the next 5 years. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that. Any questions from Council? Councillor Jagowitz.
Thank you, Chair. I was hoping someone else would put their hand up, but I guess I'm stuck with this one also. Where do I begin on this? Just, I guess, as a way of introduction, we did approve the issuance of an RFP last fall. And at that time, I didn't know what the difference was between an RFP and a tender. I thought they were the same. But now in reading our bylaw, and maybe you all know this and I'm the only one that didn't, that in a tender, all the documents are public, the bids and everything. And that's why when you saw the bids for the fire hall renovations, you saw all the amounts. But with an RFP, our bylaw says all that information is confidential, can't even be shown to a councillor. And that's very concerning to me, but those are our rules. So I have to live with them. So let me tell you what I do know, okay? What I do know is that in 2020, the fee for our current auditor's BDO was $19,200. As I read this motion, the fee for 2021 will be $22,470, increasing at 5% a year up to $27,800. So we're locking in 5% increases. Now, I've been informed that at any time, if we're not satisfied, we can cancel that contract. That's fair. So before I finish what I'm going to say, I'm going to ask one question of the director, and that is, could you tell me, I know you can't tell me what's in the tenders, but could you tell me if this was the low tender? Or is that even the comment about that, is that a secret?
Councillor Jagowitz, and I'm going to sort of chime in a little bit, if I may, and Director Donaldson, you can correct me if I'm wrong. RFPs are predominantly more about professional services and how they will interact with us versus that of specific cost. A tender, if I'm not mistaken, Director Donaldson, again, correct me if I'm wrong, is more about comparing Unit A and Unit A and Unit A from 3 different suppliers.
Mr. Mayor, I asked a question of the director.
I appreciate that, Councillor Jagowitz. I'm just trying to help provide for council a little bit of background, and I will have director ask appropriately, but I don't think that providing whether or not they were the low tender or not is appropriate at this point, because we are evaluating an entire skill set. But Director Donaldson, I'll let you confirm.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. I cannot divulge that. I can tell you that the weighting, pricing was a weighting in the scoring, and that it is reflected in the final scores, and that the RFP was evaluated on a totality of the criteria as stated in the RFP, not just on the issue of price.
Supplementary, and that is correct. And there were 4 factors. Pricing had a 40% weighting factor. And the way that works is the low tender gets the 40 points. The one that's way higher gets the proportionate. So let's say he's 60, he still gets half the points, but that's only 40%. That weighting produced results of between 2 firms. One.
I'm going to get you just to hold for one moment. I'm not sure we're on pause here. We've lost our clerk briefly for one moment, and we may lose a couple of other people. So just if you can hold that thought, we're going to let people come back. I think YouTube may have kicked off as well. So just one moment, because we want to make sure it's captured. Thank you.
Seems to always happen when I'm speaking.
So it's very clear that the clerk certainly holds all the power in this meeting.
You want me to comment on that, sir?
One moment. There we go. She's just connecting to audio. She's back. Okay, Councillor Jagowitz, you can continue on. Thank you.
So where I left off, I believe I was saying that as a result of the 4 criteria, of which price was 40%, there were 2 bidders. One was 80 out of 100, and one was 81. BDO was 81, and the other firm was 80. I call that a tie. That's what I call it. Now, just to look at a little bit of background of the firms, BDO by at large, as a Canadian company, and it does more work than the other firm, but we're serviced from the Bracebridge office. And so other than ourselves, a BDO services 2 municipalities. It does Bracebridge and Georgian Bay. The other firm does Huntsville and Gravenhurst. So to me, that's fairly equal. So I think both these firms have similar attributes. They have expressed, they would meet all those other criteria in my view, although I not only asked for the financial bids, but the way the scoring was done on the other merits, and that was denied also. So to me, it's a tie. And so to me, if I'm in a tied situation with 2 qualified firms, I'd go for the lowest bidder, personally. And I just don't know how to deal with this. So what I'd like to suggest is that we defer this and deal with it in camera so we can see those numbers. But I realize the problem that's going to create, because that would put it into March. These firms have agreed they will do their interim audits in October, November timeframe of the previous year. So we're already behind the 8 ball. So I'm just raising this as I'm just not happy with this process. And I would be much happier if there was some way of just extending our contract with our current auditors for 1 year and then bring this through a proper process where we can deal with it in a better fashion. And just for those of you that aren't familiar with auditors, auditors don't work for the Township of Muskoka Lakes. They work in a corporate situation. They work for the shareholders and they report to them. In this case, the shareholders are the ratepayers. We, the elected officials, are their representatives here. So they essentially work for us. So this causes me some concern, but I also understand the bind that it would be if we didn't approve this. So thank you for allowing me to make those comments.
Thank you. Before I go to Councillor Bridgman and then Zavitz, I just will comment that this has gone through a proper process. Deferring this does not. We have a RFP process, and in that RFP process, as to Director Donaldson's report, BDO is the winner, whether it's by 1 point or a half a point, they still are the winner. We are not privy as council to the who was a lower dollar. It should be on there. Maybe they were the lower dollar bet. I don't know. As far as going into closed session to have a discussion of this, this does not constitute a rational reason for us to go into closed session because it's not a matter of litigation or something subject to solicitor. So I'll leave it at that. Councillor Bridgman, I'll let you go, and then Councillor Zavitz. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Harding. Just to comment, because it's taking me back to when we all started on this job and we all wanted to help manage everything instead of being the board of directors. So I disagree with Councillor Jaglowitz. We're not into the process is in place. It's impartial. Excuse me, and we take the recommendation of our staff. To dig into all of this says to me that we are getting into the weeds, and that's not what our job is. So I don't agree with Councillor Jaglowitz.
Thank you for that, Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you. Through you to our Director of Finance. Mark, how does the final pricing arrived at here for this 5-year window square up with your budget expectations that you brought forward to us during our deliberations? Is this within the wheelhouse of what you expected? Did you expect to spend 18,000 and it's 27? I just wanted, can you give us a feel? It saves me going through all the paperwork.
Director.
Thank you, and through you, Your Worship. So the budget allocation in 2022 approved in the professional fee line was $25,000. And again, without divulging the pricing for any of the proposals, I would just say that is our budget for audit fees. And if there are overs or unders, we're able to manage those savings or pressures within the budget line that we have.
Okay, thank you. That answer questions, comments, everybody? So I have a resolution moved by Councillor Zavitz, seconded by Councillor Bridgman. Be it resolved that the appointment of BDO as the township auditor, for the fiscal years 2021 through 2025 be approved, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute any necessary documents. Any further comments on that? All those in favor? That is carried. Council, the clerk did send out one of the things that was left off the agenda is that of an appointment bylaw. But you would, to put this on the floor, though, it should have been on the agenda. It was just a mistake because we have to have a confirming bylaw that we confirm BDO. So I would need 2/3 of council's support to be able to read the bylaw because it wasn't on the agenda, but it certainly was contemplated within here. So I'll ask at this time if we have Moved by Councillor Jago, second by Councillor Kelly. Be it resolved that council dispense with the notice of motion requirement for a motion regarding appointment of auditors for the Township of Muskoka Lakes, and that's so we can read the bylaw. All those in favor? 2/3 and carried. Thank you. And I'm going to go right to that bylaw on that particular one, and that is moved by Councillor Everett, seconded by Councillor Hayes. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-36, being a bylaw to appoint the auditor for the corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. All those in favor? Okay, that is carried. Thank you very much, Councillor Jankovic. You have a comment?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to mention to council that, council, that during my work with my discussions with the director, or my email discussions, he did indicate that this contract can be canceled by council at any time if we're not satisfied. So just a thought that maybe we want to revisit this concept of contracts like this being secret. I don't think that's the way municipality should work. If you read the bylaw, there are reasons why you would not publish prices, but I don't think this is one of them. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you for the comments, Councillor Jagowitz. Again, from the public's perspective, Director Donaldson did follow our policy and procedure regarding requests for proposals, so appreciate that. And
that was a 2004 policy. Maybe it needs to be revisited, sir.
Thank you. The next, I'm going to go to our Clerk's Department, Director of Legislative Services, and regarding some standing committee agenda templates. Director.
Thank you, Your Worship. Hopefully there's no feedback with me speaking. So I'll be brief, as everybody has the report in front of them that was with the agenda. So just as background, you'll recall back in July 2019, the council amended the policy regarding agendas to reflect the council and committee structure, which was amended by an update to our procedural bylaw. At council, they directed that the economic development matters be heard by general finance. Later in this timeline, in May 2020, council actually approved a restructuring of the development and planning departments into the development services and environmental sustainability. That department was now given responsibility for economic development. So the ask before you is to now mirror the agendas to this reporting structure for administrative efficiency. So subject to your questions, that's my background.
Councillor Roberts and then Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. And I basically will do something I really try to avoid doing, but I'm going to state up front that I'm not supportive of this change. I don't think it makes us any more effective. I think the planning committee should be strictly planning topics. It should not be fireworks. It should not be septic re-inspection. It should not be grants or economic development. We have a very, very heavy workload when it comes to planning. We're moving into 2 days. And I don't think, I don't want to be given up another day to council on subjects. So I want to keep it with general and finance. They are general and finance topics. And if we take these away from general finance, the chances are we'll have a recess before council. So I will not be supporting this.
Thank you for that, Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, and through you, I guess just a couple of thoughts to you, Mayor. We've been living with this, working with this structure for quite some time. So to read the alternative section where it says this would perpetuate administrative inefficiencies within the development service, and is not recommended. I mean, I hate to say I'm working in a void, but I'm not aware of any inefficiencies as a chair for the 2+ years. And I apologize if we've actually had inefficiencies. I wonder if someone could explain what the implications of that are. That's just a question, not a real statement.
Okay, I think what I'm going to do is actually turn to Director Pink. Excuse me, because I think this is really trying to align some items under his area and where Manager Moore falls under that. This might help along the way. And Mr. Pink, maybe you can provide comment what the suggested change in this and how it helps your department.
Thank you, Your Worship. And through you, certainly it is up to council as to how they wish to align. Staff has suggested this change, but we certainly look to council for that direction. I wouldn't lead council to believe that there's great inefficiencies or concerns with leaving the status quo, but it made sense to myself that the department that I oversee includes economic development. I'm heavily involved, our team, with putting together the planning committee agenda as it relates to building, bylaw, and planning services. And the slight inefficiency is then also having to work with the clerk's department on putting together the general and finance agenda with respect to economic development matters. So it just made sense to keep all those under one house, one group of administrative staff working on it. I wouldn't call it, again, a great inefficiency or efficiency either way, but just again, it aligned under the reorganization that council previously approved. Hope that helps clarify.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jegowitz.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't going to speak on this, but my motive for supporting or not supporting this is just to balance the committees. In other words, planning has too much on its plate. Finance in general doesn't have enough. I'm looking at the planning agenda for tomorrow, by the way, and under it, I agree that OP, zoning bylaws, all those planning matters, they belong in planning. That's why it's called planning. But and long range planning, site plans, that all belongs in planning. But heritage and attainable housing, how does attainable housing get into planning? I don't get, I mean, everything is planning, but, and then bylaw enforcement. I know the director has that, but that's really not planning. That's an enforcement issue. And then, but lo and behold, on tomorrow's agenda, number 12 is economic development, which is supposedly in general finance, but there's an item in there. So I would go one step further. I would go the opposite way. I would take everything that's not planning related, like pure planning matters, and move them into general finance. Or the alternative would be, since we're all on both committees, just make them both committees of the whole and just divide up the agenda so the days are even, something like that. So, but I think we have so many planning issues that we need a specific planning committee, and I think the chairman does an excellent job. And I think this is the wrong way, but my track record on getting support is not so good. So, thank you.
I'll consider this resolution may be a difference, Councillor Jegowitz, because if I read the tea leaves, it may go a different way. Basically, and I'll just make a comment. I know staff really, this was their recommendation. They provided some rationale, but I don't think it really matters either way in particular. And we literally are talking about 7 more sessions at the end of this term of council. And then depending on how committees are structured going forward, there may be some changes for future council. So Councillor Evers, any comments? And then we can vote on this.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Harding. I'm not supportive of it. Finance, when you're having grants, that's money. And that I'd be doing that. Planning is overworked. I looked at even tomorrow's agenda. There's one on there that should have really gone to Committee of Adjustment, and that because it was just going from 10% to 11%. We've got to start taking it. There's too much going to planning at this time, and we should be re-looking at it. But I will not be supporting this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to read this resolution moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Roberts, and I will ask for comments, Councillor Hayes. But be it resolved that the updated policy CGG 15 Township Council and Standing Committee meeting agenda templates attached to report LS 2022-12 as Appendix I be approved. And Councillor Hayes, you had a comment.
I did. I was just going to say, if it was staff that recommended this, we could try it for a couple of sessions, and if we found that it was overworked, move it back. But if it's council, if it's staff that say that their life will run a little bit smoother if everything is split evenly, I am willing to try.
Okay, thank you. So I have read the resolution that's in favor of aligning this and having economic development move to our planning day. All those in favor? That would be 4 people in favor. Those against? 1, 2, that motion is defeated. It remains where it is. Corey, you live to work on Wednesdays, no longer Thursdays. So there we go. Thank you. Appreciate it. COVID reopening framework. How long have we been at this? We can keep, I think, oh no, sorry. Am I on the right one?
Yeah.
Mr. Hammond, over to you.
Thanks, Your Worship. As noted last month, we indicated to Council that we would come back with an updated reopening framework. It's been adjusted to address all known provincial plans. It's been made more generic, and staff continue to, it provides us flexibility to continue to pivot. Now, we saw an announcement from the Premier on Monday, which is indicative of how quickly things change. Staff are currently waiting to receive and review the regulation that's related to that announcement, along with seeking advice from or an interpretation of some of the sections of the regulation from the local health unit, because my understanding is that local health units under the latest announcement can be somewhat more restrictive. The one thing that we can count on going forward, I believe, is the public health measures of masking and physical distancing in indoor settings is going to remain. So we will continue to look at and adjust plans moving forward. Happy to answer any questions, Your Worship.
Okay, Council, any questions for our CAO? Councilor Nishikawa.
Oops, sorry, I'm not sure how this will happen. Like currently we have staff members that attend the community centers when they're being used. I hope that that will be moved on, that we can get back to a community-based trust system, I would say that sooner than later. But I actually am just taking this opportunity to once again, I understand the struggles, but it would be really good if we could have somebody answer the phone, a live person that answers the phone at the township. It just feels like we are so detached from the rest of the world, honestly. You know, and I understand, I've talked to staff, I understand their challenges, but you know, every once in a while, I even get a message from a girl that hasn't worked in our township for 4 years. So just kind of concerning that it would be really nice to have a live voice again. Thank you.
Okay, duly noted. Not sure who wants to talk about the staff working in the community centers. Does anybody want to comment on that? Mr. Hammond, that's happening, or Mr. Becking, maybe?
Thanks, Your Worship. I'll start, and if Mr. Becking wants to add or correct anything I've said, my understanding is that the screener requirement, the vaccine passport requirement, is still a requirement until the end of the month. Once we receive the regulation, that should shed more clarity there. Mr. Becking, I don't know if you have any additional comments beyond that. Thank you.
Not really, Your Worship. My understanding is that the screeners are a matter of the regulation. The Premier's announcement did allude to a relaxation of that, and if and when that does happen, we can eliminate that as a need. But we await the Premier's further announcements.
Okay, I'm going to read a resolution moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Jagowitz. Be it resolved, I see Councillor Roberts' hand is in the air, but be it resolved that staff report CIO 2022-2 COVID operational practice update be received for information purposes only. Councillor Roberts, then Councillor Kelly.
Sorry about that. I had trouble with the mouse. Thank you, Chair, for your tolerance. Through you, I support Councillor Nishikawa's request to open up, do our first step, open up in a business and have a live attendant. So at least they're greeting our customers and ensuring that the message gets into the right mailbox. But I think we need to show that we are live and still here. And I think I understand why we haven't done it totally, but I think it's time that we really try to get in touch with our customer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I know the CIO wants to speak on that, but I'll go to Councillor Kelly first.
Thank you, and through you, real quick question. Director Becking used the word could, said once the province relaxes the passport standard, we could go to something. And my question is, and anybody who knows me knows I'm not advocating for this, but my question is, do we have to? Are we compelled to drop all restrictions? Or because we may have some constituents who would like to see us maintain some of them. And so I don't know if we have that latitude or not.
I'm going to let the CIO handle that, and hopefully we don't have any Canadian flag trucks driving through Port Carling to tell us to reduce all restrictions. Mr. Hammond.
Thanks, Your Worship. I think that if I could speak to Councillor Nishikawa and Councillor Roberts' comments first, I have sent a note to the clerk. She's heard your request, so thank you. She looks after the phone system and reception. With respect to Councillor Kelly's question, I would go back to my earlier comment about the regulations, and I do believe that what I read from the Premier's announcement is that there is some latitude or flexibility afforded to each of the local health units. So certainly I will be attending a health unit call tomorrow and listening very intently to Dr. Gardner's advice. I note that he did issue a media release today, and the health measures of masking and physical distancing figured prominently in that communication. So there still can be some level of greater protection afforded to the public through our advice of the local health unit, through our measures that we implement. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Director Becking, did you want to comment? I saw you turned on your camera. Nope, I'm not getting, he wants to comment. Okay, I think we're good then. Thank you. Anybody else? I have read the resolution. All those in favor?
Carried.
That is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, I've got a few bylaws. Let's try and knock a few of these off. Moved by Councillor Everett, second by Councillor Hayes. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-005, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute and affix corporate seal to a license agreement between the corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes and Eddie Hensey, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Any comments on the license agreement? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Mazan, second by Councillor Jagowitz. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-10, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute and affix the corporate seal to a license agreement between the corporation of Township of Muskoka Lakes and Jeffrey Hunter Hogarth, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Comments? All those in favor? Carried. Madam Clerk, I want to know what happened to resolution bylaw 2022-007. It's the one thing that I have not read yet this morning. I was looking forward to. Original shore road allowance, moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Bridgman. Be it resolved that a portion of original shore road allowance on Lake Rosso laying in front of concession 14 lot 34 Watt designated as part 2 plan 35R 26600 ESPA Power Roll 22773 be declared as surplus land, and that the clerk is hereby instructed to dispose of said property pursuant to section 8, 9, 11 of the Municipal Act 2001, and further the bylaw 2022-11 to stop up, close, and convey a portion of original shore road allowance designated as Part 2 on 35R 26600 be given 3 readings and passed. Any comments? All those in favor? Shore road allowance is gone. Other shore road allowance moved by Councillor Zabit, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be resolved that for a portion of original shore road allowance on Camel Lake laying in front of concession 4, lot 7 Watt, designated as Part 1 on 35R 26641 Tilson, Rule 2227, be declared as surplus land, and that the clerk is hereby instructed to dispose of said property pursuant to sections 8, 9, 11 of the Municipal Act 2001. And further that bylaw 2022-18 to stop up, close, and convey a portion of original shore road allowance designated as Part 135R 26641 be giving 3 readings and passed. Any comments? All those in favor?
Mr. Mayor, you had said Camel Lake.
I've been told that the resolution reads Camel Lake.
I thought I'm reading Stewart Lake. Okay.
Okay. Just to confirm, it is Camel Lake?
Yes.
It is Camel Lake, Councillor. Thank you. All those in favor? Just to confirm, and that again is carried. Thank you. Fireworks, based on our last meeting, moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa, be it resolved that bylaw 2022-13 being a bylaw to regulate the setting off of fireworks within the Township of Muskoka Lakes be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Anybody want to chime in on the fireworks bylaw? All those in favor? We are updated, regulated. Thank you very much. And I'll just make a suggestion right now to Mr. Moore that maybe we put a little blurb up on our website about that new bylaw and when fireworks are allowed or not allowed. Moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor Bridgman, be it resolved that bylaw 2022-15 being a bylaw to authorize a payment for remuneration for the mayor and members of council of the Township of Muskoka Lakes be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Any comments? All those in favor?
Is Councillor Nishikawa have a comment?
Councillor Nishikawa, are you, do you have a comment?
I actually did. Like, I was just trying to, I thought that it was sort of important to say what the increase was.
Ms. Lehman, are you on the phone or on the line with us here, or Director Donaldson maybe can answer this, either or, what we're authorizing at this particular time. And then I know we also at one point in the next few months will do an update to our council remuneration policy that would come into effect for the next term of council. But Ms. Lehman, any comments on what we are trying to do for paying ourselves this year?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Harding. We're following the council compensation policy, which follows the staff compensation. That's the CPI for August, which is 4%.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Roberts, did you comment?
Sorry.
Supplemental, Ruth?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'm very curious. There was a report that I think you drafted some time ago about the number of council meetings that we were attending, or committee meetings. I'd love to see that update, because I think that's an important thing to entice councillors to have an understanding of those number of meetings that we've attended. And I have the old one around somewhere, but it was very interesting because, of course, the numbers are significantly different than past council years.
So agree, and I think as we look at our council remuneration policy, that would certainly be part of that. I may say that your choice of words to entice new councillors may be the opposite, that we have to attend so many meetings, we may not be enticing anyone. Councillor Roberts, did you want to comment?
Yes, I did. Thank you very much. I actually asked the clerk's office yesterday to identify to me all the meetings, just the council and the committee meetings that we've had since 2018. And it was more in 2 reasons. We got to take a time to celebrate all our accomplishments, and that will come out in that list of all the things we've accomplished. You can't, like, we've done a heck of a lot of work, and I think we need to be proud of the work we've done. We still have a lot of work to do. On the other hand, I think that the remuneration that we have is basically an insult, and that a person with a full-time job employed elsewhere could not ever take this job on. So we have to somehow look at that, what we're paying counselors and how we can change it. And the other one is on the expenses. $600 for expenses doesn't even come close on what you require for IT for this job. So I'm looking forward to a future meeting where we can bring this up and discuss it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Anybody else? I have read the resolution. I did call the question, but I'll call it again. All those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, I'm just going to keep going. A couple of bylaws here. Moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved, the following bylaws be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed, and that is bylaw 2022-29, a bylaw respecting the permitting, regulation, and governing of special events on township-owned property, and bylaw 2022-30, a bylaw to amend bylaw 2017-90, being a bylaw to provide for the licensing of business in the township of Muskoka Lakes, bylaw 2018-87, being a bylaw with respect to the establishment and requirement of payment for various fees and charges for information services, activities, and use of township property, and bylaw 2005-83, being a bylaw to control noise. Councillor Edwards.
Yes, thank you very much. The special events bylaw on page, I believe it's 153. Let me just get to it. What it was saying about what you must use the right-hand side of the road. And I believe we should be saying if you're walking, you should be walking on the left-hand side of the road facing traffic. I think it's even in the traffic regulations, but we've always been taught you walk facing traffic for safety. And if you're telling people you have to walk on the right-hand side of the road, if there's say like a Cherry Fox one or something like that, they're walking on the wrong side of the road if they have to walk on the right-hand side of the road.
I'm just trying to find exactly what section that is.
It's on page 153. It's 6.3.
6.3. No person participating in a special event on a highway shall fail to travel on the right-hand side of the highway, leaving room for other traffic to pass unless directed otherwise by the township. And I guess the question is that considering a lane closure that we would be closing one side of the road? I'm not sure who wants to chime in on this from a staff perspective. Mr. Moore?
Thank you, Mayor Harding. If I may, I was just going to maybe suggest if Director Becking maybe could just provide some input on this point.
Okay, Director Becking. If you can catch up, we are talking about item section 6.3 of the draft bylaw, where no person participating in a special event on a highway shall fail to travel on the right-hand side.
Your worship, I believe Councillor Edwards is correct. According to the Highway Traffic Act, pedestrians are expected to walk on the left-hand side of the roadway facing the traffic. If council were to proceed to pass the bylaw as it presently is written, it would be deemed to be invalid to the extent of the contradiction of the Highway Traffic Act.
So as a comment to the bylaw, can we direct staff to change that to on the left-hand side of the highway? Is that
you can fair? You can, if that's the wish of council.
Councillor, are we okay to amend section 6.3 to the left-hand side? Councillor Edwards?
Yep,
Great catch.
that's fine.
Thank you very much for that.
Yep, you're welcome.
Okay. And that is our special events, I believe. I should just put as amended. Okay, as amended, our special events bylaw. Any other comments? All those in favor? Maybe we should hold up our left hands in particular, since we're on the left side of the road. Thank you very much, Councillor Edwards, and the rest of council. Moved by Councillor Hayes, second by Councillor Roberts, be it resolved that bylaw 2022-21 being a bylaw to regulate the alteration, encroachment upon, fouling, obstruction, use, and care of public lands be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Any comments on this bylaw? All those in favor? There we go. Carried. Okay, moved by Councillor Everett, second by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved bylaw 2022-23 being a bylaw to appoint a municipal investigator and livestock or poultry valuer be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. When I hear livestock poultry, I think of Yellowstone. Any comments on this? All those in favor? The Dutton Ranch will be happy. Moved by Councillor Bridgman, second by Councillor Jagowitz, be it resolved bylaw 2020. Oh, we've lost Councillor Bridgman. Let's change that. Thank you very much for that. Let's go to Councillor Hayes. Moved by Councillor Hayes, second by Councillor Jagowitz, be it resolved that bylaw 2022-31 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2018-30 being a bylaw to prohibit and regulate signs and other advertising devices in the corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Comments? All in favor? That one is carried. Public Library Board, moved by Councillor Roberts, second by Councillor Kelly, be it resolved that bylaw 2022-22 being a bylaw to appoint a member of the Township Public Library Board be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. All those in favor? And Councillor Zavitz is in favor. Thank you. Once again, unanimous. Okay, Council, let's take a quick 8 or 9 minute break, and then we will get back to a couple of planning applications. Thank you. Pete paid attention.
Sound like an emergency alert system or something.
No, it's the cockpit alerting the flight attendants to please take your seat because we're about to take off.
Fasten your seatbelt.
Mayor Harding, I am going to be a few minutes late. I've had an emergency call.
Not a problem. Thank you very much for letting me know. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I do have quorum, but we'll see if we can get Councillor Hayes to rejoin. And Councillor Edwards. Okay, there we go. We have another bylaw to designate site plan control regarding Maple Leaf Marinas. Mr. Sawyer, do you want to explain anything about this particular one, or just go ahead?
Well, I'll just quickly explain why this is required. Thank you and good afternoon. In January, Planning Committee had heard zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 4721 in the name of Maple Leaf Marinas Holding. The purpose of the application is to permit a parking area as a main use on a rural property that is located in close proximity to Walker's Point Marina, which is also owned by the applicant. And Planning Committee had recommended approval subject to 2 requirements. Number 1, that the property and proposed development made subject to site plan control. And number 2, that any concerns with the existing entrance be addressed to the satisfaction of the township, along with the issuance of an entrance permit if required. And to satisfy the first requirement, the site plan control bylaw that is before you now has been prepared to designate the property as being subject to site plan control. And,
okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's it.
I have a resolution moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor Hayes, who are both on the screen. Thank you. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-33 to designate site plan control, part of Lot 10, Concession 2, parts 5 to 9, Plan 35R 17458, Wood, Maple Leaf Marinas Holdings, Rule 8541-1 be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Any comments? All those in favor of site plan control? Passed. Thank you. Okay, and now we're going to move on to 599720 Ontario. Who is going to just do a quick introduction of this one? Mr. Soya again, thank you.
Thank you. So this goes back to April of last year when council gave 2 readings to bylaw 2020-130. And this rezoning application was heard concurrently with a consent application to create 1 severed lot with frontage on D Bank Road. And the purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment was to change the zoning on a portion of this severed lot from a rural industrial zone to a rural residential zone, and to also provide exemptions to minimum lot frontage. To satisfy provincial requirements related to this change in use from industrial to residential, 3rd reading was at that time withheld until a satisfactory record of site condition had been entered into the province's so-called environmental site registry. Since then, an environmental site assessment has been completed, which has concluded that there is no evidence of any contamination on the severed lot, and confirmation has been received from the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks that the resulting record of site condition has indeed been entered into the environmental site registry. So having received this confirmation, this provincial requirement has been fulfilled, and staff would recommend that 3rd reading be given. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So no minor amendments in this particular?
No minor amendments, yes.
Get rid of that. Thank you. Third reading. Before I read, any comments, questions on this? Council? Moved by Councillor Zavitz, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved by law 2020-130-599-720 Ontario Limited be read a third time and finally passed. All those in favor? That one's carried. Thank you. Okay, Maple Leaf Marinas Holdings. Mr. Soya, the trifecta today. We're back to.
This is again related to the site plan, the same property for which the site plan control bylaw was approved. The approval bylaw for this zoning bylaw amendment also, or the recommendation from committee also had a requirement that any concerns with the existing entrance be addressed to the satisfaction of the township. And so the public works staff had previously advised that the existing entrance from the subject lands onto Marina Drive requires a realignment. Therefore, planning committee had recommendation had included this requirement for the entrance. However, now that council has passed the site plan control bylaw and the property will be subject to site plan control, public works staff have advised that they are comfortable with requiring any necessary improvements to the entrance through the site plan control process. So therefore, just to ensure that if there's any realignment that is required, staff are recommending a minor amendment to replace the schedule to this bylaw with a site plan that does not show the driveway. Currently, the schedule shows the route of the driveway and the exact location of the entrance. So removing it from the schedule would ensure that any minor changes will not require further amendment to this site-specific zoning bylaw. So that's the recommendation for that minor amendment for the switch out of the schedule. Thank you.
I'm going to read first and second, moved by Councillor Jaguar, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that bylaw 2021-154 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14 Maple Leaf Marinas Holdings, Rule 8541-1 be read a first and second time. All those in favor? First and second is carried. Thank you. As Mr. Stoya suggested, the minor amendment moved by Councillor Jagowitz and seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be resolved, Township Council amend bylaw 2021-154 Maple Leaf Marinas Holdings, and this amendment is minor in nature and does not require further public circulation and is hereby approved prior to third reading. The amendment shall consist of updating Schedule 2 to the bylaw 2021-154 to reflect the revised site plan, which we just heard. Any comments? All those in favor? And there's carried. Thank you. And finally, moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that bylaw 2021-154 Maple Leaf Marinas Holdings will be read a third time and finally passed. Final comments, questions on third reading? All those in favor? That is carried. Let there be parking at Walker's Point Marina. Perfect. We have a number of future meetings, as we know. Planning committee meeting will be held on February 17th. Special planning committee on Friday, February 18th. That's assuming we go along, or is that going to be a definite? Do we know?
It's assuming we go.
It's assuming we go along. So let's see if we can be efficient tomorrow morning. GNF, blah, blah, blah. We know all that. Moved by Councillor Hayes, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Welcome back. Be it resolved that council 11A. I've got one goes.
We'll read the second one.
Let's go read the second one. Moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Be it resolved that council in closed session convene at 3:51 p.m. for a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by municipality local board, one disposition matter, litigation, potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, three matters, advice that is subject to solicitor client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. And there are 2 matters there, and a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried out on or to be carried on by or behalf of the municipality local board with 1 matter, and if required, for personnel matters about an identified individual, including municipal local board employees, committee appointments, 1 matter. That is not required, but pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001. All those in favor to start our closed session? In favor? That is carried. Thank you. We're going to just turn off some cameras and kick some people out of the meeting. So give us a moment.